everybody. How's it going? Thanks for joining me. I know there's a lot going on YouTube, especially this sector. So I appreciate if you guys are here to chat with me about the next two episodes of the Serial podcast that launched this case into I guess, you know, just the word of mouth, people started talking about it and things started happening. So, um also has a lot of similarities to the Karen Reed trial that I've been kind of making while I've been watching it. So, we'll kind of talk about that as well. Um so, hey, Steffi, Evil Queen Yaya, hey, Braze, SoFlo, Sinner. Thanks for being here. So do all the things. That's what SoFlo Mama said. Sorry, I'm just like reading stuff and not even explaining. Um, so in the last episode of Serial that we covered, and again, Serial is a podcast that I believe launched the craze, I would say, for true crime podcasts and um really actually launched my interest into true crime podcasts, and there is a lot of good things that have come out of podcasts, following cases, getting the word out, kind of reigniting the flame, so to speak, on certain things. So I do think podcasts do good work. I've learned a lot from a lot of that I have listened to. And so this is the story of um Hae Min Lee, who um passed away in 1999, so it's actually been 25 years, which is really crazy. So what we learned so far is that Hae Min Lee went missing on January 13th, 1999. Her body was found in Leakin Park February 9th, 1999. So she was missing, I believe, what, 8 weeks before she was actually found. And we will hear that, until her body was found, the investigation wasn't really heightened. She was an adult. I believe she was 18. She had a car, so they were just kind of, oh, maybe she might have ran away. A lot of her friends thought she might have ran away. So Adnan was arrested for her murder with no physical evidence. And that is something that um I don't know. I have thoughts about. I have thoughts and feelings. The state's case against Adnan was Jay Wild's story corroborated, and I put that in quotations because we'll get into that, but they more or less had the story match the cell records. Asia McClain saw Adnan in the library during the same 21 minutes. The state is saying Adnan murdered Hae Min Lee. So Adnan has an alibi and still spent let's see. I want to say about 23 years in prison. I'll have to do the math. Asia McClain was never questioned by detectives or any attorney regarding her letter slash possible alibi for Adnan. So never questioned by an attorney, never questioned by any of the detectives that were investigating this until after he was convicted for first degree murder. So who we've met so far: Hae Min Lee, our victim, the tragic, the soul that lost their life. Hello, everybody coming in. Adnan Syed, who was recently exonerated for first degree murder in the murder of Hae Min Lee. But we'll kind of go into that a little bit more later. But he was also he was exonerated, but then his conviction was reinstated due to an appeal and yada yada yada. Well, it's a weird technicality that I don't think has ever happened to anybody. So yeah, we'll go into that in just a bit. Jay Wild. So Jay Wild is the one and only witness that witnessed anything. He didn't witness the murder, but he is stating that Adnan asked him to pick him up and saw Hae Min Lee in the back of the trunk outside of Best Buy and then helped Adnan bury Hae. Rabia, who is the person that reached out to Sarah Koenig that did the Serial podcast. Her brother Saad, who is Adnan's best friend, and then Asia McClain, who is technically Adnan's alibi, who was never questioned or heard from in the trial. And investigators and Adnan's attorney knew about her knowing about him. Basically being in the library at the same time they're saying he murdered somebody. So just let that sink in, I guess. All right, so we're going to now jump in to episode 2 of Serial. So I think I'm gonna have it at 1.25 speed. Um, we'll probably, as Emily Baker says, zoom zoom. I'm gonna steal a lot of Emily Baker's saying, so just fair warning. We're gonna zoom through some of this because um episode 2 is about the breakup of Adnan and Hae. And so there are definitely points that are I want that are valid. There's some that are, like there is a song I'll probably skip through because I don't want to get a copyright. But yes, so let's start it.
Off. Last episode, you heard how the prosecution told the story of this murder at Adnan's trial. And the motive the state supplied, the basis for the whole thing, was that after Hae broke up with Adnan, he couldn't accept it. He was so wounded by her and so furious that he decided to kill her. Prosecutor Kevin Urich told the jury in his opening statement, quote, he became enraged. He felt betrayed that his honor had been besmirched, and he became very angry, and he set out to kill Hae Min Lee. Or this is from closing, quote, it was humiliating what she did to him. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, this was not a crime about love. This is a crime about pride.
Okay, so they're basically saying that he killed her because of pride. So they're trying to tie in his Muslim heritage that he couldn't he just couldn't handle that a girl would turn him down. As a kid in high school who was, dating other girls after this, doing other very non, Muslim things that such as smoking and drinking. And so, but they tried to paint him as this angry person who couldn't stand being his heart broken and embarrassed by this girl.
But is that what their relationship and breakup were really like? Was he so hurt that he decided to kill her? That's what I'm trying to find out in today's episode by talking to lots of people who knew Hae and Adnan, mostly their friends, because they were a close-knit group. Some of them had known each other since elementary school. And even though they went to a big, tough high school, Hae and Adnan and their friends were clumped together in a magnet program of about 30 kids, kind of school within the school. And they all took classes together and hung out together and they dated each other. So they knew each other well.
I'm kind of jealous. I don't think there was ever like a magnet program at my school. I think maybe it was like the AP classes. Um, but yeah, this group of kids, aside from Jay, they're all in this like advanced placement program. And So, they all hung out together, they dated each other, but they were all smart. So sometimes Adnan didn't have to go to he had like free periods and stuff. So it's just okay, we'll keep going. Sorry. Getting ahead of myself.
And the other information I have to go on are Hae's own words about their relationship, because I have a copy of her diary. It was entered into evidence at trial. It was read by many people, cops, prosecutors, even Adnan. What's remarkable about the diary and what makes it so helpful is that it's essentially a chronicle of the Adnan era of Hae's life. The first entry is April 1st, 1998, right when they started going out. And the last entry is dated January 12th, the day before she went missing. And in all those months, what she's mostly writing about is Adnan. If you had to
Could you imagine having your diary like read out in court and like people having copies of it? Um I mean, I guess nowadays that's like your phone. Like if your phone ever got like seized and read, like in the Karen Reed trial, there's some crazy text messages being read out that people probably didn't think were gonna be read in court. But oh, it just gives me like secondhand embarrassment because who wants their diary read?
to bookend Hae and Adnan's romance, you'd put a school dance right at the beginning and then another one right at the end. The first dance was junior prom. Adnan and his best friend had a little competition going about who could get the prettiest prom date that year. Someone said Adnan should ask Hae to go. So one day after sports practice on the little hill behind the school, he asked her to prom and she said yes. On April 27th, she wrote a long entry in her diary about prom night. Her diary, by the way, well, I'm not exactly sure what I expected her diary to be like, but it's such a teenage girl's diary. She jumps from her boyfriend to driver's ed to the field hockey game. She's bubbly one minute, and the next she's upset with her mother or dissing her friend or complaining about homework.
Okay, this is the song I'm gonna zoom through. So basically they are so in her diary they read that at prom um Adnan was crowned prom prince, and then Stephanie, who is Jay Wilde's girlfriend, was prom princess. And I guess by tradition, they're supposed to dance to Casey and JoJo's "All My Life," which is like her jam. But Adnan was so sweet because he actually asked her to dance and not Stephanie. So they got to dance to her song. Let me see if we're past it.
Thing.
Okay. So, yeah, I just didn't wanna get hit for that song. Yes, K-Braze, it is a great song. I definitely remember that song being one of the slow dance songs they used to play at, like, the junior high dances or the youth football homecoming dances. Um, so I believe now we're at, one of Hayes' best friends, Aisha. So we'll pick back up on track.
Oh, she would tell her parents she was at your place.
Yeah. Or others, primarily mine. Just a lot of that sort of secrecy around it.
We had
So, I think it was mentioned in the episode before, but they had to keep their relationship a secret, Adnan and Hay, because Adnan's mom was very strict. Uh, you know, he wasn't supposed to be dating any girls because that was in their traditions. And I mean, hey, kind of the same, but they both had to kinda keep their relationship a secret. So Hey would say that she's going over to Aisha's house when she's going to Adnan's. I remember definitely doing that when I was, actually, she wasn't going to Adnan's, scratch that, they were probably just going out. I think they would get hotels and stuff, which I don't think I ever did that in high school, but, anywho. I would always tell my parents, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to so and so's house," but I was really going to my boyfriend's house.
we had a lot of I guess we had a lot of real similar type of situations with our families.
That's Adnan. Since he and Hae both had immigrant parents, they understood the expectations and the constraints. Do well in school, go to college, take care of your younger brother. And for Adnan, no girls. If a female friend rode in his car, for instance, she'd have to make sure not to leave any long hairs behind. Or if a girl gave Adnan a ride home, she'd have to drop him off down the block so his parents wouldn't see who was at the wheel.
It was really easy to date someone that kind of lived within the same parameters that I did with regards to, she didn't have an expectation of me coming to her house.
I always kinda get ahead of myself, so, yeah, we're hearing that his mom would check his car for long hairs, the mileage. Evil Queen says no, especially when she was young and put her feelings into it. I know. I so I always had diaries. I just never stuck to it. It was always like an idea. I did write like 1 or 2 pages, and then I wouldn't keep going with it. But it sounded like she wrote a lot of a lot in her diary. Oh, thank you, SoFlo. She dropped the Hayes diary in the chat, which I will actually bring up. We can take a look at that real quick. Ooh, my dryer's done. It's like making a doo doo. Okay, so all right, this is all like the law stuff. Okay, so yeah, so Haley, um, far from being Monet. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. Because I think she got it at a Monet exhibit. So yeah, this is, oh my gosh, this is gonna be annoying. So Flo dropped that in the chat, so check it out. It's being annoying and not letting me share it. So what ifs? All right, let's get back to
her house for dinner with her family. She understood that, that if she was to call my house and, speak to my mother and father, I would get in trouble, and vice versa. So we would have to kind of set up our talks on the phone. Usually we would talk later.
okay, their system that they had. I am kind of mad that I never thought of the system because I was always like really scared to call my friends' houses and stuff like that. I think I did have a cell phone pretty young, but still, like this system they had was pretty good.
When our parents were sleeping.
They had a whole system for this. One would page the other when the coast was clear. Remember, it's 1998, so not many cell phones around. Then that person would call some 1-800 service, like the weather or the time, and the other one would call in so that the phone wouldn't actually ring. It would come in through call waiting, and the dozing parents would never be the wiser.
How sneaky is that?
At the trial, the state tried to paint a picture of Adnan as possessive of Hae, as controlling. When I spoke to Hae's closest friends about that, a couple of them did say that he seemed to be over-involved with her somehow, though they couldn't come up with
Sorry,
any
guys, I'm the worst
examples.
with that sliding
Few people
shit.
remembered a time when Adnan showed up uninvited to a girls' trip to an amusement park. Aisha Pittman was one of them. She remembers nothing positive about their relationship anymore, though by her own admission, she doesn't know whether her memories are colored by what came later.
I think it was probably mostly normal,
Hey,
but things that
Ellie,
like,
how are
he
you?
kind of just always generally annoyed me because just the constant paging her if she was out. He's like, "Well, I just wanted to know where you were," and it's like, "I told you where I was going to be." If she was at my house and we were having a girls' night, he would stop by, like he would walk over and try to come hang out, and it's just like, have some space.
I mean, I don't know. When I was in high school and um, there were boyfriends or my friends had boyfriends, I feel like that was just normal. When you're in high school, it's like exciting. You want to see them. I don't know.
And it's one of those things, at first, it's like, "Oh, it's so cute, your boyfriend's dropping by," but then the 10th time, it's like, "Really?"
Did
Hey,
did
Steffi.
Hae ever seem freaked out by it?
No, but I don't think I was ever freaked out by it in the moment.
Here's Hae's take on one of those impromptu visits Aisha's talking about. On July 16th, she writes, quote, Adnan dropped by Aisha's late with carrot cake. So yeah, Hae does not describe Adnan as overbearing or possessive in her diary. Though she does mention a couple of moments when she's mad at him, like, quote, how dare you get mad at me for planning to hang with Isha? Or a time when he was nasty to her because she didn't respond to his messages fast enough. But mostly these incidents seem to be tit for tat. Quote, I'm in a real bitch attitude and Adnan is not helping, she writes on June 15th. He hasn't called me since 12:30 this afternoon and it's definitely pushing me to the edge.
Okay, like this all just sounds honestly like teenagers fighting. Like I probably had these feelings and these fights and these arguments with friends or boyfriends, but I just never wrote them down. Um so I don't know. We'll keep going.
I think I'm going to pick a fight, unquote. Hae's friends say she had a strong personality and strong opinions. She was no pushover. When she was pissed at Adnan, she let him know. But by far, the majority of her diary entries are about how much she likes and loves him. I stopped counting. There were so many wonderfuls and sweetest and best boyfriend in the world. Mostly I heard stuff like this from their friends. Here's
Are you jealous, Sarah?
Becky Klein. Back then, she was Becky Walker.
It's just a silly teenage high school relationship. I remember a lot of teasing and a lot of, hand holding, arms around each other. I don't really remember anything weird or anything that stands out.
They hung around all that summer before senior year. They'd meet up after work and drive around. They were 17, they were in love, they were active. They'd have sex whenever and wherever possible, sometimes at motels or in the car or at a park or other people's houses or apartments. Sometimes they'd fight and then they'd quickly make up. A couple of times, Hae called it off, but then would ask for Adnan back after a day or 2 or 3. Remember, the setup for this crime that the state laid out was that Adnan was betraying everything he held dear for this girl. As a good Muslim, he was not supposed to be dating, and so he was sacrificing his religion and lying to his family, all just so he could be with her.
Yeah, so like I said, they were trying to paint him out to be this angry, prideful, um, you know, controlling guy because of his religion, but he just wasn't he I think he's like I said, I keep getting ahead of myself, but he wasn't that religious, he always would say.
And it twisted him up inside. And Hayes' diary seems to be where they found some evidence for that. In fact, they had a friend of Hayes, Debbie Warren, read excerpts from it on the witness stand. Quote, "I like him. No, I love him," she read at trial. It's dated May 15th. Quote, "It's just all the things that stand in the middle. His religion and Muslim customs are the main thing. It irks me to know that I'm against his religion. He called me a devil a few times. I know he was only joking. It's somewhat true." And then there's this, which wasn't read at trial, but is from July when Adnan went to an Islamic conference in Texas with his dad. This is the most distressed Hae gets on the topic. When I read it, I thought, whoa, this does not look so good for Adnan. Quote, "I keep crying over the phone because I miss him so much," she writes. "He told me that his religion means life to him. He tried to remain a faithful Muslim all his life, but he fell in love with me, which is a great sin. But he told me there is no way he'll ever leave me because he can't imagine a life without me." Then he
So, I don't know. I might chalk this up to like just dramatic teenager raging hormones. There it sounds like they both had kind of high highs and low lows. So it does look bad for Adnan that, you know, in her diary she puts that he is saying that uh it's so against his religion that he's with her and um he's being so sinful. Definitely doesn't look good for him. Nope.
Then he said that one day he would have to choose between me and his religion. "I love him so much, and when it comes to choosing, I'm going to let him go his way. I hate the fact that I'm the cause of his sin." He said that I shouldn't feel like I'm pulling him away from his religion, but hello, that's exactly what I'm doing. So, yeah, anytime someone's writing stuff down like sin
Hey,
and devil
Grandma
and religion
Sherry.
means life in reference to their secret relationship, that's not good.
Not good,
But ask
sir.
the Muslim in question about it, and it all sounds so much smaller.
I may have said it as a joke, like, oh man, hey, I can't, I'm going to hell because I'm dating you or something. But I never meant it in the type of way that it seems that she took it.
Adnan claims he just wasn't that religious. He was going to clubs and having sex with girls and smoking weed from the time he was
Yeah, he was getting down with his bad self. He was smoking weed, having sex with other girls, going clubbing. Um, so
14 or 15. Culturally, yes, a Muslim, but the rest, he says, not so much. So passages like this, he says he doesn't really recognize himself in them.
I never really felt as if, man, hey, it's tearing me away from my religion, and I never, only till I read her diary that I really kind of understood that, wow, this is the perception that she kind of had. Just like the gravity and the magnitude with which she took these things, I didn't really feel that way about these things. Maybe it seems convenient for me to say that now, but the only thing I could say to kind of, I don't want to say prove it in a way, is that my behavior didn't change once I stopped, once they broke up with me. Or once, we broke up or whatever. It's not like, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this whole big sin is out of my life. No, it just, I just continue with the same type of behavior. It was just different people.
So yeah, so once they broke up, he still was dating girls, smoking weed, lying to his parents, doing I feel like the same things that every teenage boy does at that age. He was what, 17 years old? So, um, you know,
Religious stuff aside, the state said Adnan was guilt-ridden over lying to his family about Hae. But he says he wasn't all that bothered by that. He figured he was a pretty good kid. He's doing well in school, he had a job, he was volunteering at the mosque. Why shouldn't he have some fun? And in the pantheon of ways a teenager could have been disrespectful or deceitful to his parents, he thought this rated pretty low.
Yeah, my name is Shamim Rahman, and I'm the mother of Adnan Syed.
I love Adnan's mom. She is the cutest thing in the world. Um, yes, she's the cutest.
Adnan did most of his lying to his mother. She figured out something was up pretty early on. She'd found Adnan's crown from prom in the basement where he tried to stash it, along with his
Okay, but come on, who didn't kind of fib to their mother when they were in high school? Come on.
doxx. Shamim came to the United States in 1976. Her husband was already here working as an engineer for the state of Maryland. She's from Peshawar in Pakistan, where you do not date. You are either married or unmarried. There's not much of a middle ground. So Adnan's girl contact put Shamim in a state of high alert. She would check the mileage on his car to see if he'd driven farther than he said. She eavesdropped when he talked to girls on the phone.
Yeah, so she would check the mileage on his car. So my parents were never that crazy. They would check my computer. So they bought me a computer so they could check it. But yeah, they never checked the mileage on my car. I think probably because I bought my car myself. So it was like, what ifs?
I know this makes Shamim sound terrifying, but she's not at all. She adores Adnan, her middle son.
Yeah, he will talk to the girls. Yes, I would pick up the phone, or I'll.
And would he know? Would he say, like, Mom, hang up the phone?
Yeah, he'll say, "Mom, I know you're listening to me." Yes, I say, "Adnan, I'm here." You say, "Mom, stop, listening to us."
And
His mom, I love her. So she would like pick up the phone and listen to him on the other line, and he'd be like, "Mom, get off the phone." Oh,
was that conflict? I mean, it must have been
no,
sort of
Grandma, you
constant.
didn't.
Of course, yeah, because for me it was unacceptable. So we used to argue a lot. I
Alright,
say,
good
"No,
for
you
you,
cannot
good
do that.
for
You cannot.
you.
If you like somebody, it's all right. You can get married, but not
I
without marriage.
know,
You cannot."
right?
Of course, me and Adnan had a problem.
Adnan's father was a little more loose about
He
it.
was my whole family was loose. Even my older son, he say, "Mom, everybody's doing it." Even my husband say, that all the boys are doing it, but I say, "No, not my children."
Adnan wasn't getting punished for
Mom,
any of this.
everybody's
It wasn't
doing
as if
it.
he were about to get kicked out of the house. More like he was being reminded of his responsibilities, both at home and at his mother's request by his youth leader at the mosque. Then came the homecoming dance in the fall of senior year. Adnan and Hae had been together for about 7 months by then. This dance would become a big deal at trial, proof of just how fraught their whole relationship was
Oh yeah.
and how tormented Adnan was about his double life. Here's what happened.
So this dance, I would be so embarrassed if this happened to me. So I definitely feel for Hay on this one.
Adnan's parents got wind that very night that he had taken Hae to homecoming. Adnan says this kind of thing happens in their community all the time. Someone sees someone else's kid at a dance or at the mall, and before you can even hide behind a potted plant, 4 aunties are on the phone to the kid's mother. Anyway, this time, Adnan's parents did not wait to deal with it at home. They showed up at the dance and chastised him, made a scene. The prosecutors argued that this scene would come to haunt him until the day he killed Hae. Here's what
could you
prosecutor Casey
imagine?
Murphy told the jury about the moment when she says Adnan strangled Hae. What is it that this defendant saw on January 13th when he looked down at Hae Lee? Then she lists a couple of things and says this, quote, he saw his parents standing at the window of the homecoming dance. He saw his mother raise her voice at Hae Lee in front of his classmates. Look what you're doing to our family. He saw the pain in his mother's face because she knew they were together. And he saw himself, in the end, standing there with nothing to show for it but a guilty conscience and a pack of lies in which he cloaked himself. Now, compare that with how Adnan's best friend Saad remembers the homecoming.
So do you guys that are here in the chat, you lovely people in the chat, I don't know, do you feel that situation would be worthy of, killing somebody, being so embarrassed? I mean, Hay was embarrassed. Why would he, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Debacle.
He comes home at like 11 p.m. or like 12 midnight. And I'm like, what happened at your homecoming? And he's like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what? He's like, my mom, my dad showed up. And I'm like, what? And I mean, we're dying laughing on the phone about this, just, this is our world. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, they showed up, they made me leave. And everyone saw it, how like, literally my parents pulled me out of this relationship.
I've come across dozens of bits of evidence like this. Information that can either mean one thing or perhaps its opposite, depending on who's talking. Adnan's cell phone, for example. He bought it just 2 days before Hae disappeared. The state tried to show that that was all part of his plan, that he needed the phone to carry out the murder. But Adnan says he wanted the phone so he could call girls unfettered. And he was proud of the phone. He'd worked hard at his job as an EMT to pay for it.
Okay, yeah, so that's a big part of the story. Adnan got a phone, like, the day before Hae went missing, so that is something that the state is saying, "Oh, well, he planned it. That's" he got a phone so that he could carry out this murder, but he's like, "No, I'm trying to call girls."
Oh, and the job. The state would argue that because he was an EMT, Adnan would have known how to strangle someone and would have had the training to revive them if he'd wished. Adnan, again, he says he was proud of being certified. He'd gotten the highest score on the qualifying test of anyone in his class and a real job as a result. He liked old people, and his job was mostly to ride in the back of the ambulance with old people, make sure they were okay. In the detective's notes,
He loved riding in the back of the ambulance with old people to make sure they're okay. Come on.
they interview Adnan's English teacher, Jane Ephron, who apparently tells them, quote, Adnan had a dark side, which is in his poetry. The words dark side are underlined. And Miss Ephron?
It was like all the teenagers that I taught because everything in their lives was dark. I don't remember any of them having anything upbeat to say. So he was just another one that makes you think that you're living on another planet. You look out at them and they're all healthy and hearty and playing and being stupid.
So it didn't stick out in some way. It was just like all teenagers write broody, dramatic poetry.
Absolutely.
See what I mean? All this information, every scrap, it's currency for whatever side you're on. It's spin. And the trouble with spin is that you can't totally disregard it, because swirling around somewhere inside, some tendril of it, is true. Saad Chowdhury thinks Adnan is innocent, so for him, the homecoming story is also innocent. Hae didn't write about homecoming in her diary, but Aisha says it wasn't funny to her. It was a big deal. Aisha remembers Adnan's parents wanting to find Hae so they could talk to her, which of course Hae wanted nothing to do with.
So that we could leave the dance and not be harassed by his parents. Like, she walked out holding hands with my friend John to get away from it, and she just felt like that was a completely ridiculous thing, and she was super pissed, wanting to have. I think that for her was I absolutely don't want to be with this person at all because this is what happens.
On November 3rd, Hae wrote in her diary, quote, who would have thought we would end like this? Who would have imagined the amount of pain that comes with a broken heart? I know I'm doing the right thing. Call me selfish, but this pain is way less than what it would be if we stayed together.
Thanks for stopping by.
Then, apparently, they reunited because exactly a month later, on December 3rd, she's full of love for Adnan again. Quote,
Okay, so after the homecoming dance, they break up, and then they're back together.
this feels so real, so loving, and ever so amazing. I can't be any happier, but yet I keep on being happier. But then, just 3 days later, there's this on December 6th. Quote, what's the matter with me? Every time I close my eyes, I see my baby, but I keep on thinking about someone else. Don.
All right, buckle up, y'all. Dawn has entered the chat. Not literally, but in this story. So remember that name, Dawn.
Hae has got a crush on Don, an older guy, he's 20, whom she works with at Lens Crafters at the Owings Mills Mall. Don has blue eyes and blonde hair and a Camaro, and she really, really likes him. For the next couple of weeks, she's racked with guilt and confusion over what to do. At one point, she writes Adnan's name in giant block letters made out of tiny little Adnans, and underneath that does the same thing with Don, in giant letters made up of tiny dots.
Yep.
On another page, she writes Don's name 127 times, 127 Dons. It's not clear from the diary when she finally tells Adnan it's over, but certainly by Christmas, they were split. On New Year's Day, Hae has her first official date with Don, and they start going out. Hae is head over heels. Aisha remembers meeting him on a double date to Friday's Restaurant, and then to see the movie Shakespeare in Love.
I never watched Shakespeare in Love. Was that movie good? I've also never been to a Fridays. I'm thinking that means TGI Fridays. But yeah, so beginning, I guess, did they say New Year's Day? They is when Dawn and Hae have their first date.
It was the most awkward double date in the world because he was older. I forget how old he was, but he was significantly older than us. And my boyfriend was 2 years younger. So it was just a horrible double date.
Like you were out with one man and one boy?
Yeah. It did.
This is where the real questions begin. All the most important questions about Adnan, about how he responded to this breakup and to the fact of Hae's new boyfriend. Because the whole premise of the state's case against Adnan is that he felt betrayed and humiliated and angry, and that's why he killed her. This idea came from Jay, their main witness. It was Jay who supplied the motive to police. Here's tape of Jay being interviewed by Detective Greg McGillivray.
What did he tell you?
I was muted. Okay, I'm gonna put it to normal speed during the police interview because they are hard to hear a bit.
He told me that she had broke his heart. It was extremely wrong
for anyone to treat him that way. That he couldn't believe how she stood and looked him face to face and told him she didn't love him and could be that heartless. And
How could you be so heartless? So this is Jay, who is the literal only evidence that the state had against Adnan. They had 0 DNA. Well, so they collected DNA. They didn't test it. They didn't test it till 2022. So this guy's story, which changed, another theme in the Karen Reed trial, this guy's story changed, I believe, to fit the cell records, to fit the pings, but just his story.
he told me, he said, almost jokingly, I think I'm going to kill him. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to kill him.
You didn't know how he was going to kill her.
No.
But he told you that he was going to kill her.
Yes.
Because she had broken his heart.
Yes.
But nearly everyone I spoke with, Adnan's friends and teachers, say he took the breakup like anyone would. Adnan's friend Mac Francis said Adnan was initially devastated and jealous about the new boyfriend. Then he grumbled about it in a typical guy way, nothing strange. Everyone I talked to said some version of this, that he wasn't rage-filled or vindictive. He was just sad.
It really did seem like run-of-the-mill, mundane teenage angst.
That's Donna Paoletti Phillips. She taught Adnan and Hae AP psychology, and I've known them both since they were freshmen. In her job, she's seen a lot of high school breakups.
But the level of frustration he must have felt if he killed her doesn't register with me. I don't remember getting that vibe from him. He was just another kid whose heart was broken.
I wish Emmy was here. Emmy, are you here? Emmy, are you here? Because this next part kind of, I was like, whoa.
And goodness, if I thought that the kids I teach today were going to resort to some kind of horrific crime based on that kind of thing, I would have stopped teaching, because it happens
every other day.
It would be.
Adnan's friend Saad said Adnan definitely wasn't mooning over Hae.
When they had broke up, Adnan and Hae had broke up, it'd been like a month, maybe more. She had already started dating another guy. And I was like, Adnan's dating multiple girls. I was like, I can tell you some of the girls that he's dating. I was like, he is
Yes,
not
one
upset about
witness.
him and Hae breaking up. I was like, he's dating this girl, Anjali, in Philly that he's been going to see. This girl. And I know it wasn't like great proof, but it was still proof that he wasn't obsessed with Hae. He wasn't. I was like, I'm trying to explain. I'm 17. I'm like, he's a player. He has a lot of girls. I was like, he's talking to multiple. I was like, I have too.
He was cute and
Not a
charming.
player, I just
He was
pushed
just
a lot.
very sweet guy. Very flirtatious.
Sorry, Saad, she's not talking about you. This is Anjali, the girl in Philly. And she confirmed, yep, a couple of visits. They made out, nothing too serious. On New Year's Eve, Adnan met another girl, Nisha, from Silver Spring, Maryland. And he started calling her a lot, too. Adnan's friend Mac remembered Adnan making out with another friend of theirs at a party that January. So yeah, a player. Adnan himself describes the breakups with Hae as fairly rational events.
Each time that we broke up, or each time, let me say that each time that she ended the relationship or took a break, it was never a thing where I was like pestering her or like going to her house, knocking on the door or chasing her down. Look, I want to get back with you. I want to get back with you, because of a part, there was a part of me that knew that, man, what she's saying, it makes sense. So, yeah, so pretty much that we were just friends, we would talk about things like she would tell me about someone that she had met at her job, a guy named Don.
Don.
And
you have 30 seconds remaining.
Can I call you back? Or?
Yeah, call me back. That's the prison phone system telling us our time is up. This happens every half hour. Surprises me every time, because I often sort of forget where he is. But so you're making the breakups sound very kind of calm and mutual and like nobody got upset. But I mean, is that true, or was there like crying and the usual teenage angst over it?
Well, mind you, now this is me talking, 15 years later. I mean,
is that how you say angst? Is it supposed to be angst or angst? Asking for a friend.
She was upset. I was upset. It was times where I was very sad. And maybe I would kind of be like a little stubborn about it. Like, no, we can make it work. Our parents will be cool or whatever. But on the other hand, it was never a thing where I was like, screaming and yelling at her, why are you leaving me? Or so,
Right.
just to say that, just to kind of dispel that was never my.
I know. I couldn't imagine. I don't know. Relationships in high school just weren't that serious. I feel like they felt serious, but I don't know if it would ever get to this level in my eyes.
Behavior, at all.
It is true that no one at the time described Adnan as acting obsessed or menacing in any way, not even Aisha. And in her diary, Hae never expresses any concerns about Adnan's post-breakup behavior. In fact, she writes about a time just before Christmas, so after they'd broken up, when she gets into a little car accident and calls up Adnan to come get her from work.
Okay,
Both
I'm
tried at the
gonna,
trial.
as she says, zoom because
At this point, I'm going to say flat out that he was interested in other and was now left with nothing, and clear, though,
this is
that he
just all
was
kind of
privately stewing
Sarah's
about Hae. Maybe once
opinion.
Dawn came on the scene, he thought, that's a slap in the face. How dare you continue to lead me on like this?
So basically, she says she doesn't buy the motive, like presented as it is, that he was so rage filled because she broke her heart, or she broke his heart.
A couple of their friends say he did ask Hae for a ride.
Okay, and then there's this big question on if he asked Hae for a ride that day.
One of them was her friend Krista.
If I remember correctly, I think Adnan and I had a class together. Our first grade class was photography, and they passed each other in the hallway, and I was with him, and I remember somebody saying, or him saying something about, can you give me a ride after school?
Their friend Becky told police she heard something about a ride as well.
I do remember that there was talk about it. I remember I felt like he asked her to give him a ride somewhere.
Oh,
So keep in mind all of these young adults were asked all of these questions 6 weeks after all of this happened. And so how fresh are your memories that far when, especially when you're in school? I feel like when you're in school, the day's so repetitive that they would just all blend together. I wouldn't be able to tell you what day I did what. So I feel like a lot of these people were just kind of led to believe it was the same day because I don't know. That's just kind of a side note. Um, but we'll keep going.
Okay. Can I just read to you what the police notes say? I think April 9th, 99, they interviewed you.
Mhm.
So it says, sometime earlier that day, apparently he asked her to take him possibly to get car before lunch because it was in the shop. Heard about it at lunch. So I
Mhm.
think you heard about it at lunch.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Hae said she could. There would be no problem. At end of school, I saw them. She said, oh, no, I can't take you. I have something else to do. She didn't say what else. Approximately 2:20. So that happened at approximately 2:20. He said, okay, I'll just ask someone else. He told her goodbye. And then just says, did not see Hae after that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right. It kind of all comes back a little bit.
So Krista and Becky both remembered. And while Becky's recollection maybe works in Adnan's favor, that Hae turned him down for a ride and he seemed cool with that, the question is still there. Was he trying to get in her car? Did he ask for a ride, just like Jay said? And in fact, the most damning evidence in support of Jay's statement doesn't even come from Krista or Becky. It comes directly from Adnan.
Comes
because
from
he himself
Adnan.
told the cops the
Says it
same thing
himself,
that
I
day.
guess.
This time, the state would call police officer Scott Adcock to the stand.
Around 6:30 p.m., after Hae had gone missing, a Baltimore County police officer named Scott Adcock called Adnan's cell phone. Hae's family was worried that she hadn't turned up to her cousin's school, and the officer was calling around to some of her friends to see if they knew where she was. Here's Adcock testifying at trial.
I spoke to Mr. Syed, and he advised me that he did see the victim in school that day, and that he was supposed to get a ride home from the victim, but he got detained at school, and she just got tired of waiting and left.
Then, a little more than 2 weeks after the call with Officer Adcock, on February 1st, by this time the search for Hae has ramped up, a different detective calls, asks Adnan about the ride thing. Asks him, did you tell Officer Adcock you'd asked Hae for a ride? According to the police report, quote, Adnan said this was incorrect because he drives his own car to school. So, he reverses himself. Why would he do that?
And you know what's weird is I don't know if it's ever been looked into if Adnan really did have his car in the shop ever. Because like I said, a lot of these days I feel like for these people were just kind of meshed together. So who freaking knows? Okay, that's pretty much the end of that episode. So we're gonna jump to I think one of the most interesting episodes of this podcast, called Leakin Park. So Lincoln Park, people call it Lincoln Park, like the band, kind of also spelled differently, but it's actually spelled Leakin Park. Um, this is where her body was found. But apparently a lot of bodies get found in this park. It is notorious for being a dumping ground for dead bodies. So Let's get into Lincoln Park.
Of Hae Min Lee were both experienced Baltimore City detectives.
Okay, so they go into the freaking detectives, the stupid guys that investigated this crime. And I say that because he is, a lot like the stupid detectives that investigated the death of John O'Keefe, where they got tunnel vision based on, I guess, one tip and just ran with it, made the evidence fit that. I feel like in Karen Reed, they're doing a lot of doing like making the evidence fit the story rather than following the evidence to find out what happened.
Their names were Ritz and McGillivray, Bill Ritz and Greg McGillivray. And how I wish right now that I could play you tape of their perspective on this case, but they didn't want to be interviewed. When Bill Ritz finally turned me down after 6 weeks of back and forth, he said he didn't see the point. The case has been adjudicated, he said. What good would it do? I also spoke on the phone briefly to McGillivray, and he said just a few sentences to me, and one of them was, beyond question, he did it. Meaning Adnan did it. He
Beyond
didn't hem or
question.
haw or hesitate. He remembered the case right away. Beyond question, he did it. How did they arrive at that level of certainty?
Hey, Truth Seeker. All
Before
right.
Hae's body was found, this was a missing person case. She disappeared January 13th, and the investigation starts out a little slowly, which makes sense to me. She's not a small child. She's 18. She's got a car, which is also missing. That first day, the police call around to her friends. They talk to Aisha, to Adnan. Remember, that's when he tells them he's supposed to get a ride from her, but didn't. The next day, they call around to hospitals, hotels, motels. They check the area around the high school parking lot where she was last seen. You can see from their reports that they immediately hone in on the most time-worn explanation for such disappearances: the boyfriends, current and former.
So totally get that. Looking at the boyfriend, current and former, I feel like I would start with current first, which I don't know if Serial gets into it. So I apologize if I do get ahead of myself. But Don, her current boyfriend, they didn't talk to him. They didn't actually physically talk to him until probably about midnight or 1 a.m. The day she went missing. So just very suspicious.
That first day, they called Don, her new guy. They checked the area around his house, which
Here
is
we
in
go.
another county northeast of Baltimore. Over the next 2 weeks, they keep going
So
back
yeah,
to Don.
she doesn't
and
say
to
it, but
Adnan,
they
asking more questions.
call him, but they don't actually get a hold of him until midnight.
They checked Don's alibi. He was indeed at work at the LensCrafter store the day Hae went missing.
His mom was his manager though, and there are questions about his time card being altered. So
tells them. And they talk to Adnan's track coach to check Adnan's alibi. And it's inconclusive. The coach tells them he can't be sure Adnan practiced that day. They don't take attendance. On February 6th, they
now
do
I
that
can't
awful
remember if
voting
my sports teams took attendance in high school.
thing you see on TV sometimes. They take a team of dogs to check the wooded areas and fields around Woodlawn High School. They used Hae's curling iron for a scent. On February 8th, they make a report saying they're going to check Hae's computer, her AOL account, for clues. And then on February 9th, their search stops, and a new suspect emerges.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
This is tape from a police interview of the man who finds Hae.
Okay, so this is the man that finds Hae in Lincoln Park.
He's a little hard to hear on the tape. He's soft-spoken. I'm going to call this man Mr. S. I don't want to use his full name for reasons I promise will become clear. Mr. S works in the maintenance department at a local school.
I think I may have discovered a body in Lincoln Park.
I think I may have discovered a body in Lincoln Park, he says. Before I get to the slightly off-kilter story about how Mr. S discovered this body, just a word here about Lincoln Park. It's actually spelled Leakin Park, Leakin, but almost everyone in Baltimore pronounces it Lincoln Park. It's huge,
Lincoln
over 1,000
Park.
acres on the western edge of Baltimore City. It's got a reputation, and not for the beauty of its woods or its trails or its nature center. What it's known for, sadly, is dead bodies. Mention Lincoln Park to people from Baltimore, as I often did, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get a comment like this.
While you're digging in Lincoln Park to bury your body, you're going to find somebody else's. That's Lincoln Park.
When I told the rental car guy in West Baltimore I was working on a story about a girl who was found in Lincoln Park, he said, "Oh yeah, my uncle was found dead in Lincoln Park." A macabre website dedicated to Baltimore murders lists 68 bodies found there since 1946. So the list is missing at least 7 years of stats, so that number's
That
probably
is
low.
insane.
A lot of law-abiding Baltimoreans, they don't even really know where Lincoln Park is. Rabia Chowdhury, that family friend of Adnan's who first contacted me about this case, when she was explaining it to me, she said, "Yeah, and how is Adnan supposed to get to Leakin Park so fast? It's like an hour into the city."
Yeah, so they don't know that Lincoln Park is like 3 miles away from where they are, so we'll kinda zoom to
Lincoln Park. I'm like, where is that? Do you even know where it is? Have you ever been?
Saad and Rabia are sitting right now. And the simple fact that Hae was found in Leakin Park, for a lot of people, that alone made Adnan look innocent. Like, what's a nice boy like you doing in a park like this?
What's a nice boy like you doing in a murder park like this?
And I walked around through the bushes and everything.
So now, Mr. S. He also told the cops he'd never been to that part of Leakin Park before, though he did seem to know that people go fishing back there.
Like, geez,
Here's what he
Sarah.
told the cops.
Sarah!
At his job, he'd gotten a work order to shave down a door, but the school didn't have the tool he needed, a plane. He had one at home, though. So
Okay, so how often is it? So I am a homeowner. I've never had to shave down a door.
during his lunch hour,
So got a work order at the college he worked at to shave down a door. So this is Mr. S's adventure on how he stumbled upon this body.
he said he drove his truck home, got the plane from his basement, and before he left, grabbed some sustenance out of the fridge.
I'd rather be out of the refrigerator. It was a 22.
Okay. Let me put this back to normal because so he grabbed some sustenance out of the refrigerator, but the sustenance was a 22-ounce Budweiser.
Budweiser, and I was drinking on my way back to school when I broke that, and I had to go to the bathroom, so I pulled over, and I went further in the woods so no one would see me urinate. And when I discovered what looked like the body.
So he's drinking this 22-ounce Budweiser, and he's heading back to work.
So as Joneson would say, skirt, hold up. I think the first time I heard this podcast, I was like, wait, we're not going to address the fact that he is telling the cops that he was just drinking and driving. Okay, I'm just going to blow right past that. All right.
And his route to the college is through Leakin Park. And suddenly he has to pee badly, he says. He stops on Franklin Town Road. He's about 3 miles from work. There's a small pull-off and some concrete barriers, and he walks back in there. Quite a ways, it seems like, for a guy who just has to pee. Later, they'd measure 127 feet back into the woods is where he goes. This next tape is a little upsetting.
And I got...
Okay, so trigger warning. He is going to describe what he saw.
Back that way. I was getting ready to urinate when I looked down. I seen something look like hair. Something was covered under dirt. And I looked real good again. And until I seen what looked like a foot.
So he said he was urinating, he looked down and he saw hair, and then he saw what looked like a foot.
What drew your attention to the area that you went to? There was something there. It was an open area. An open area? But there was also a fallen tree, is that correct? Yes, it was. All right. I mean, did you go to that area for a certain reason? No. No? No? All right.
They're suspicious of Mr. S, who by this time has become a suspect in the case. This tape was made on February 18th, 9 days after Mr. S reported finding the body. They're going over the details carefully because there are parts...
Again, 9 days after he found the body, why are they waiting so long to question him?
...of his story that are a little weird. One of them is this thing about the fallen tree. 127 feet back into the woods, there was a fallen tree, essentially a 40-foot log, lying more or less parallel to the road. On the other side of the log, if you'd kept going, you'd have gotten to a stream with the unfortunate name of Dead Run. Hae's body was buried right behind this log on the stream side. If you were standing on the street side of the log, so on the other side, it's not at all obvious that you'd notice her. So his story about why he stopped where he stopped, it doesn't quite seem right. Here's Bill Ritz.
When you're walking back to this area where you finally stop, why did you pick that particular area?
That's I didn't pick that area. I was going to go back further, except for that's when I seen, the hair. That's when I left out.
Hey,
So
Brian.
you're going to actually go back further?
Yes.
In this part of the tape, you get a sense of how Ritz and McGillivray operate together, or at least what I've gathered from listening to a bunch of these interviews.
So Mr. S said he was actually going to go back further. But then why didn't he?
McGillivray starts out all non-judgmental. Just tell me your story. Then Ritz comes in and says something like, just help me understand here, and asks some harder questions, exposing weaknesses in the narrative. Then McGillivray will come back in, but now it's a tough for McGillivray, and he's asking direct, sometimes harsh questions that seem like they'd be good at pushing someone off balance. Like this one, sort of out of the blue.
Have you ever been inside that girl's car before? Oh, no. Never.
You're standing on the south side of the tree between a tree and a
This doesn't ever get cleared up, really, and they sort of let it go.
Let me see.
Before I discovered it.
before you discovered it. Very.
Never.
Back to the fallen tree. Here, Ritz is saying, wait, I thought you told McGillivray you stopped at the log to pee, but now you're saying you were on your way farther back?
Stop there, before you're getting ready to urinate. And then that's when you look down and discover the hair.
Yes.
And now you're saying you're going to actually go back further?
Before I discovered it.
Before you discovered it. Maybe I'm a little bit confused. As you're standing on the south side of the tree between a tree and a
This doesn't ever get cleared up, really, and they sort of let it go.
There's a lot of shit that doesn't get cleared up, really.
The path he takes back into the woods, it doesn't really lead to the log. So why does he end up there? He didn't need to head toward the log to find a hidden spot to pee. There are so many other choices. And if you're walking through brush and brambles, wouldn't you sort of naturally avoid a big...
And, okay, well, in just a bit, this is a little side note. We'll hear there is a reason why, and I don't think Sarah Koenig ever brings it up, why I don't know why this person even needed to go to a spot where he felt like he would be hidden to take a leak. You'll see what I mean in just a moment.
a big log you need to step over? What they're trying to get at is, did you really just stumble on this body, or were you looking for this body because you already knew where it was? That is a reasonable question, because Hae's body wasn't just hard to spot. It was nearly impossible to spot.
All right, we're in the state's attorney's office. We just got delivered the first box of what they're saying is disclosable under whatever Public Information Act that I did.
I didn't understand how camouflaged the body was until I saw photos of the crime scene, the way
Right,
Mr.
I
S
didn't
found
realize
it,
it was so
before
low.
they removed the body. I was in the state's attorney's office in Baltimore. I went there with a crime reporter from the Baltimore Sun. His name is Justin George. I've been talking to Justin about the story, and he's interested in maybe writing about it too. We opened a packet of photos together. Some of them were awful to see, as you'd imagine. There was one where you could make out a bit of black hair amid dirt and leaves.
How did he notice
How
that?
can you notice the body? I don't understand that either. I mean, it's pretty well covered.
So they're basically looking at the crime scene photos and wondering how the hell he even saw, Hae Min Lee, because of how well she was covered up.
Yeah, there's barely anything showing. Wait, are we supposed to be looking at something there? What is that? Is that her? That's her. That's all he saw?
Yeah, that's looks to be part of the body. Yeah, I expected it to be more visible than it is.
Justin and I weren't the only ones who had this reaction. The city's surveyor, a guy named Philip Budemeyer, went out to the burial site to measure the distance from the road. This is before they disinterred her. Here's Budemeyer testifying at trial.
When I arrived at the site where the body was, there
Okay, so this is the site surveyor. He is testifying at trial, and it's like it's kind of sad, but he doesn't even know where to look. He doesn't even know what he's looking at.
there was a log on the ground approximately 40 feet long. Okay, I stepped over the log. I walked along the edge of the log, expecting to find a body real soon. I never saw one, at which time, had I taken one more step, I would have walked on the grave site where the body was.
And at that point, there were others on the scene?
Yes, ma'am, there was a lot of people there.
And at some point, did somebody point out to you the exact location?
Yes, ma'am. Detective pointed to the site. I looked down at the ground, and I said, well, I don't see anybody. It wasn't freshly disturbed.
It was not freshly
No.
disturbed.
He's
Yeah,
like,
just
"Girl, I
blended in
don't
with
see-
the
I
natural
don't
surroundings
see
of the ground.
So it's super weird that Mr. S saw this fucking body.
So here's a guy who's looking for the body, who knows where it's supposed to be, who can see that there are a bunch of people standing around it, and still he can't find it.
Long story short,
So does
Mr.
it
S, you are Mr. S right now for suspicious.
seem reasonable that Mr. S, who apparently wasn't looking for anything except a secluded place to pee, would have discovered it just like that?
No, because he didn't need a secluded place to pee.
The other thing that's a little odd is this business of having to pee. The spot where Mr. S stops is only a few miles from his house and only a few more miles from his work, yet he can't wait. Here's Detective Ritz questioning Mr. S again.
While you were at home, did you have to urinate or use the bathroom at all?
No, I didn't feel like I had to go at the time.
So within 7 or 8 minutes, how much of the 22 ounce beer had you consumed?
I think it was almost empty.
It was almost empty. In that 7-8 minute period, you had to go to the bathroom. It was an urgent need. You say? Yes,
It was an urgent
Yet
need.
Mr. S says he never actually does pee in the woods. Says he ends up waiting until he gets to work, which, okay, maybe that makes sense. You've had a shock. But why would he walk so far in the first place if he was just trying to have a quick pee? And why was he studying the ground? Ritz asks him about this.
You got out of your vehicle, you ventured back into the woods. When we were at the remeasured, it was actually 127 feet off the roadway. As you're walking along, why are you looking down at the ground? Are you looking every step that you take, or you so you wouldn't stumble?
10, 11, 12.
Okay, so they
and so
go
was just
back
area
and they
patrolled. Dumpers will be prosecuted. The
look
park
at
itself was quite
the
lovely.
I think at dusk, I think it is. Very bleak. 21, 22.
and they're measuring
We
127
walked in what we
feet
figured is
back
about 127 feet.
to see if it really was like weird for him to
Justin
stop and
paced it
pee
out by
there.
the yard.
42. Be right about there.
We actually wander around for a while, trying to find the right spot. Finally, I remember that we have a hand-drawn map of the site from that surveyor, Budemeyer, who testified.
40-foot long, 15-inch log on the ground.
Once we get to the right location, it dawns.
Okay, so I actually have the hand-drawn map of the site. So let me pull her up. Okay, so let me zoom her in. Can I zoom her in? Oh yeah, there we go. So this is the hand-drawn site, or sorry, hand-drawn picture or diagram of the site. So this is basically the roadway kind of into Lincoln Park. I forget. Oh, Franklintown Road, yeah. So foresty, body found there, and then this is the log. So, and the body was found on the other side of the log. All right.
Dawns on all of us. 127 feet back doesn't feel all that far if you're looking for privacy. You
Privacy.
can still see the cars on the
This
road from where
bitch
we're
didn't need
standing.
privacy.
So if he's peeing, yeah. I mean, at least you'd want to come this far. Huh?
There's not a lot of foliage, so yeah.
There's nothing. Yeah, I mean, there's like some dead leaves or whatever, but yeah, you can totally see the cars.
This bitch did not.
So actually,
need
that doesn't seem
privacy.
that weird to me.
Suddenly, Mr. S's story seems eminently more believable. While we're in the woods, I fill Justin in on the evidence they collected here.
Right near the body was a liquor bottle.
Okay, so
from
liquor
which
bottle.
they got cellular material and never tested.
They got cellular. Can't speak. Material never tested.
And a rope that was never tested.
Rope never tested.
As far as I know. And then up at the road, they found a condom and a condom wrapper, but I think the condom was still rolled. Like, I don't think it was a used condom necessarily. And they found a bunch of shell casings. They found bullets and shell casings and stuff from 2 different guns. And they found two Blockbuster video cases.
What do you guys think the Blockbuster videos were that belonged in those cases?
But by the body was, I think the only thing they got right from the area of the body was the liquor bottle and the rope.
I know, it sounds like a game of Clue, except for the condom part. As for the liquor bottle, back at the taped interview with Mr. S, Detectives Ritz and McGillivray want to find out if this guy could be the source of that liquor bottle.
So K-Bray says is there not a gas station or something that she could have stopped at? So I mean, we can pull up the map. So Woodlawn High School. I don't know if I know the name of the school. Min Lee Cousins School name. Woodlawn to Campfield. Okay. Gotta love Reddit. So Woodlawn High School, Baltimore. And then directions to, what was it? Campfield. Elementary school. Okay. So She would have, and I don't know if this is exactly the way she would have went. Um, but here's the high school. So this looks more or less like a back road, but there are main roads. I mean, she could have taken the freeway to get there because it looks like that's a route. So it looks like there might have been, I mean, obviously this was 25 years ago, but I mean, if she would have went this way, stopped for food, that's highly possible. So it just sucks because this was back in the day where there were no phone. I mean, there were phones, obviously, cell phones, but they weren't as prevalent. People had pagers still. So it's a sign of the times. Okay, so yeah, they basically want to see if he is the source of the liquor bottle, the brandy bottle. But why don't they just test the DNA that's on it and then maybe you'll find out who it belonged to. I mean, just
now.
And it's important we know about it because what we're going to do is analyze that and come back 6 months or a month from now, 3 weeks from now, and say we have evidence that you were deceptive with us, that we have DNA proof that you were there, and then you say, "Oh, Dr. Britt, I forgot." And
He says, I'm not sure, could have, but I'm not positive because I know I throw a lot of bottles out the window. Ritz asks, what bottles? Beer bottles. Whiskey, maybe?
he throws a lot
It's
of bottles
possible.
out the window. So we have a lot of drunk drivers and litterers.
And then he sees this terrible, sad sight, and he does the right thing. Tells the cops, shows them where she's buried. Well, how horrible now that they're so suspicious of him, that they're considering that maybe either he did it or he knows who did. How terrifying for Mr. S. After all, he seems like a nice, quiet guy, cooperative, doesn't appear to be a brandy drinker. Again, I can only go by the reports and files, but my guess is...
So it was a brandy bottle that they found near the body.
Is the reason the cops are holding on to Mr. S as a suspect is because Mr. S has a little bit of a record, which isn't necessarily a big deal. But, and here's a part of the story where I'm hoping you'll understand why I'm not using his name. Mr. S is a streaker, and not the frat party kind, freaky kind.
Mr. S is a streaker, not the frat party kind, the freaky kind.
He's got indecent exposure charges, to borrow a phrase from Adnan's defense attorney, under circumstances that bizarre does not even begin to define. Mr. S is arrested May of 94 for running about naked in a residential neighborhood. 2 years later, March of 96, he's spotted wearing a hoodie, sunglasses, white sneakers, and nothing else. The officer writes, the Southwestern District has received numerous calls for service in the past 3 years to this area for the same incident, same description.
So this bitch, Mr. S, is a streaker. He just likes to run around naked around the city centers. We'll hear a very embarrassing story coming up. But so if he's a streaker, then why is he walking to try and find somewhere secluded to pee? Right? Is that weird to me?
Past 3 years. The officer chases down Mr. S onto I-95. Mr. S jumps some chain link fences, the kind with razor wire at the top, ends up in the hospital. It gets worse, or better, depending on whether you enjoy police reports as much as I do. December 7th of 1998, so barely 2 months before Mr. S finds Hae's body, there's this. At around noon, during what I have to imagine is Mr. S's lunch break, a lady named Margaret is driving along, and here's the report, quote,
Bye, Truth Seeker. Thanks for being here.
A black male dashed out in front of my car and began shaking his body in up and down motion. The male had on no clothes. His penis was exposed as he faced my vehicle, shaking. And this lady, Margaret, is a police officer in uniform. She chases him, but he runs down into the metro stop. Margaret finds his work clothes in a pile and takes them, which means, unless Mr. S has a second outfit stashed someplace, he is riding back to work in the all-together.
Okay, so let's recap that story. He jumps out in front of a police officer in uniform, I think in her cruiser, and is just shaking his business at her. And then the police officer steals his clothes and his keys. Okay. And I'm gonna mute and play this because that dog's going wild, wild, wild.
And there's another twist to this incident. The same day he flashes Margaret, so December 7th, 98, Mr. S files his own police report. There's been a theft, he says, from his car. Someone's taken his cell phone, his money, his keys, his work clothes. But you and I, we know who has all of it. Officer Margaret.
This bitch filed a police report after he was shaking his privates at a police officer. The audacity.
Streaking isn't a violent crime or necessarily a sexual one, and there's no evidence that Hae was sexually assaulted.
Wait, you're trying to tell me that streaking is not a sexual crime? What the fuck is it?
Anyway,
That's
but you can imagine both sets of eyebrows rising on Ritz and McGillivray's faces when they see these reports. It's strange behavior. They never asked Mr. S about it on tape, but I figure he knew they knew, and they knew he knew they knew. The same day they interview him on tape, February 18th, they also give him a polygraph.
Did Sarah just do a Friends? They know we know they know we know they know.
Test, which he fails. Deception indicated as a conclusion. But the tester also said Mr. S seemed to be nervous because apparently he had an important meeting with a realtor that day. His wife is expecting him to pick her up.
Okay, so we're going to recap because I kind of interrupted that. But so they gave Mr. S a polygraph. He failed it. Deception indicated. But the person said that, oh, Mr. S was nervous. He was meeting a realtor. So, we'll circle back. We'll circle back.
So the tester recommends a do-over. About a week later, they give him another polygraph, this time with different questions. For instance, do you know if that girl you found died because she was hit with a tire iron? I guess that's a thing. This time, the result is no deception indicated. He passes. And very quickly, Mr. S fades from their view. Here's what my own thoughts were when I learned about Mr. S.
So they redo his polygraph and he apparently passes. So, okay, bye. That's it. That's all. They're just going to move on. So
I didn't really think, oh, maybe he did it. Maybe he killed Hae. But I did wonder if maybe he heard something about the crime and about where she was buried. Because it did seem a tad unbelievable to me that he spotted her the way he said he did. One theory I had was maybe one of his stepkids or a neighbor had told him about the body, because maybe they'd heard about it through other kids at school.
What up,
and
Lisa?
maybe Mr. S, just as a good Samaritan, thought someone needs to go find this
There's
girl
a
and
dog
tell the
barking.
cops. But he doesn't want to say he's heard about it beforehand because he doesn't want to get anyone else in trouble. Mr. S didn't want to talk to me. After I made several requests, he asked if I'd please leave him alone. Fair enough. I tried every which way to figure out if he knew, or anyone in his family knew Adnan or Jay or any of the people Jay had told about the murder, and vice versa, whether any of them had ever heard of Mr. S. I found no connections. The closest I got was, bear with me, I found out that Mr. S.'s sister-in-law was a math teacher at Woodlawn back in 1999 when all this happened. So I called her. Hae was her student, she said. An excellent student, top of the line. But she didn't think Mr. S knew anything about the crime before he found the body. She put her husband on the phone, Mr. S's younger half-brother. And he said, you know what's crazy? I used to live next door to the kid that did it. That was back when Adnan was 9 or 10. He said he used to throw the football around with him, and then he always seemed like a nice kid.
Another parallel to Karen Reed. Everybody knows each other.
But again, he said he thought his brother stumbled on the body by accident. Then he paused and chuckled and said, I think he was running through the woods, streaking, and that's how he found it. When I told him that apparently he had stopped to take
So maybe he was streaking in the woods, not peeing in the woods?
a pee, he said, that's possible too. So maybe Mr. S is telling the truth. After all, why would a guy who's been in trouble repeatedly for indecent exposure seek out a dead girl, thus inevitably inviting more police contact to rain down upon him? Mr. S wasn't the detective's only lead in this case. We know they're also looking at the boyfriends. And while I don't exactly know why their suspicions about Adnan start to percolate, I have an educated guess. Next week on Serial.
Next week on Serial. All right. So that was episode 2 and 3. So we went through the breakup of Adnan and Hae and the way that this peculiar character, Mr. S, and Mr. S, Mr. Streaker, who had to hide to pee but likes to run about naked. So that story is a little suspect to me, not gonna lie. What is the next episode called? Let me take a look see. Let me take a little look see. So inconsistencies. So we will go through the some of the inconsistencies in Jay's statements because like I mentioned, this man was prosecuted and convicted of first-degree murder based on one person's story. No physical evidence. Shoddy cell records that they shouldn't have used in the first place. Little this, little that. Uh, so yes, the next time we will go through episode 4. So it's 33 minutes, which how long is episode 5? Because maybe we can do 2 and 1 again. Because these ones are kind of short. And Root Talk is probably one of my favorite episodes. Let's see. That one's a little longer, 42. Okay, maybe we'll do both. So keep an eye out for that. Again, this is another just, sad story of the justice system failing not only the victim but another party, Adnan, who was convicted for this, because he has been exonerated. So, and I am very surprised that more people don't know about this case, at least in this community. But, yep, sometimes the maths ain't mathin'. Sorry, thought I was gonna sneeze. Okay. So, make sure your notifications are on, because I may pop up this week to do episode 4 and 5, or AKA part 3. But I know that this week I will be glued back on the Karen retrial. We sadly have a break tomorrow. I'm not excited about that. I wish that there was trial to watch tomorrow or listen to. But I get it. Like, jurors need some time. So, thank you for being here. If you're catching the replay, thank you for being here on the replay. I hope you guys have a great evening, and I will see
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time,